ఒకరికి మెటాలిటీ ఏమీ లేకపోతే అవ్వచ్చు కానీ ఒక షాప్ పంపించుకుంటే ఏం తప్పు ఉంది అనుకుంటాను నేను.
Today. And Amin, if you want to start the recording, I'm going to jump right in and other folks will just hopefully catch up. So let me know when you've started the recording.
It started.
Awesome. Good morning all, or good evening or good afternoon, depending on what part of the world you are in. Welcome to workshop number 1, and more importantly, welcome to TiE University 2020 edition. This is actually the second time that we are running TiE University worldwide, so we're very pleased and proud to have university students from across the world in the US, in Canada, in Israel, in Dubai, and India joining us today. In that regard, first of all, for those of you who don't know me, though I suspect that's probably a very small subset of the population, all of these slides will be uploaded to the shared folder by end of day today, so you do not have to write everything down, but if along the way it'll be more useful to connect with us, certainly you are welcome to take a picture of this particular slide. I'm located in Atlanta. I am one of the co-chairs worldwide. We have another co-chair in Hyderabad who's actually meeting with a customer. He made a good decision, so he's not on today, and then we will likely have resources from Silicon Valley available to help us as well today. So welcome again, and we'll be covering a lot of stuff quickly and then jumping into the workshop. For assistance today, our executive director here in TiE Atlanta, Amin Sadruddin, his contact information is here. Please don't use WhatsApp. He's a big person on text or email, but more importantly, if you're on, just use chat. That'll be the most likely way. And in fact, you can even reach him for any kind of technical items between workshops, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we will be joined, if Vijay is on, just identify yourself, Vijay. But he may join a little later because we've got another set of TiE events happening today as well. He's our Worldwide Global Organizations Executive Director and might join us in terms of things happening at your chapter that need to be handled. He's another resource for you, or you may know Aparna Mishra, who is in India as well. So we've got a lot to do today, and that was the 2-minute introduction, and I'm going to jump in and tell you what we're going to accomplish today in workshop number 1. I'm going to spend just a few minutes more on the Global Pitch Fest. I think this will be hopefully a reinforcement of information for those of you who have participated in our past calls, which we hold on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of the month. But I just want you to see what all's going on, because it's a great opportunity. Even though we can't be in Santa Clara this year in California, I'm hopeful that you all feel like we're creating a community of students. Even though you're competing with one another, I hope you'll find that you now will have friends and resources that can help you in different parts of the world through these programs that are made up along the way in August, September. So I'm going to spend a few minutes in there, but the bulk of the time today will be our workshop number 1. We're going to do these for 4 Saturdays in August. And today we're just going to have you have 2 objectives in mind. Try to listen to. Thank you for muting. If you're not speaking or have a question, in fact, use chat or raise hand would be better. For today, even though I know we're going to spend a couple of hours together, I'm hopeful that you'll take away 1 or 2 ideas that you can implement into not just so much the pitch competition, but really in launching or scaling your business. That's really our intent, is that we help you launch and or scale your business depending on what stage you're in, because that is what TiE is about. We're building the next generation of entrepreneurs, which represent the student teams today. So hopefully you'll find 1 or 2 ideas. I wouldn't take 14 ideas because I know what happens. You're all busy folks like we all are. And instead, try and find 1 or 2 that you can do and really up your game, whether it be in your pitch session, but more importantly, just in general as you go to market. Okay. And if you find nothing of any new news, I'm hoping you'll be able to keep a checklist that says, wow, we've done everything right. That will reinforce that your go-to-market plan, your selling and marketing strategies are really right on. I would indicate that I think you'll find some new info from Mr. Singh. So either way, I'm hopeful these two objectives will get met. And depending on when we end today, we're going to have an optional session where we can break your teams out into breakout rooms. You can spend a few minutes staying on Zoom in your individual breakout rooms as a team. If you have your mentor today, great. We'll put that person in your breakout room. You can spend 10, 15, 20 minutes accordingly. Okay, so that's the calendar today. As I said, everything we're going to share today is either already in or will be by end of day in this shared folder. You've had that information for a long time, so just want to reinforce. So we're going to kick off with poll number 1 and 2. And I'm going to ask Amin to, oh, here we go. I'm going to launch poll number 1, okay? And Amin, just confirm that we can see it. And we're going to ask all of you to take an answer that is numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. How ready is your team overall, not just in the go-to-market strategy, but how ready is your team overall? I'm going to ask you a separate question shortly about your go-to-market strategy, but specifically, but if the TiE University pitch competition was occurring today, this weekend, are you totally ready, sort of ready, maybe not ready? So we'll ask that everybody take a score. And by the way, David and other mentors, you're welcome to score what you think your team is at as well. So we have participation by everybody, and I'm going to give it all of another 30 seconds. We don't have many answers.
If anyone in the room cannot see the poll, if you click on the bottom tab or the bottom row of Zoom, you should see some dots, and it should have the poll pop up there. But we got about half of you guys that have, well, a little bit more than half.
Good.
70%.
So far, nobody wants to win third place. So boy, in terms of demand and supply, I don't know. Do I have to end the polling to show it, or does everybody see it?
I'll do that. I'll do that on my end. I'll give it 5 more seconds here. We're at 80%, 85, perfect. Okay, share
Good
results.
deal. So 8 of the folks who polled said, we're going to win first place. Great attitude, great confidence. Obviously, execution is what matters. And so far, third place is totally empty or available in terms of your confidence level. And there's a couple of you who go, wow, we need the ensuing weeks to catch up because we're not really ready. So, okay, sounds good. Now we're going to move to launch poll number 2. You want to do that, Amin? Okay. So this one, the first question was about your overall readiness. This one to help Mr. Singh. How ready is your team's go-to-market, your marketing and sales strategy, implementation plans? How ready are you, as it's already evidenced in your pitch decks, in terms of if you were sitting in front of the TiE University judges today? How ready are you all? And 5 is totally ready. 1 is not really ready. So far we're Paul, I think, we're both Paul today. So far they're going to challenge you with teaching them something new or reinforcing them, because so far the scores are coming out on the higher end of the bell-shaped curve, as I'm hoping you can see, right? Yep. Paul Singh, can you confirm audio is working for you and that you can see the poll? You may be on mute.
I don't see the results. I see the poll.
Oh, you will in just a second.
I'm sorry. We're going to give you another 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I'm sorry. I think because I see it. Good point.
Since it's my morning.
We're testing you early to see if you had your second cup of coffee, Paul.
No, this is still on the first one.
I need to go get a second one. Okay, good deal.
Oh my God, that is cool. Okay.
Good deal. They're going to challenge you.
50% are ready.
They are super ready. By and large, they're an average of 4 or a mean of 4.
Yeah, I'm ready.
They are ready. So you're going to either reinforce what they think, or you're going to give them 1 or 2 new ideas to go learn. So, okay, good deal. I'm going to close the poll off and turn a couple of more things on. And and get that out of the way. I'm hoping at this point you're back to seeing a slide saying polls 1 and 2,
Yes.
correct? Awesome.
Yes.
Good. Continuing on, very pleased to tell you we have 16 cities, i.e. 16 chapters from across the world that are participating. I hope, again, even though you feel like you're competing with one another, that you'll find that this is sort of a co-opetition where you may get friends along the way in these events to reach out that might help you with resources, ideas, thoughts, etc., from different parts of the world. So you can see who they are. As we get into the homework exercises that Mr. Singh will lead, you'll get to learn a little bit about what these names mean and in terms of the team name and what they're doing. But we have just an incredible variety of universities represented, but more importantly, a tremendous variety of B2B, B2C, B2B2C, and different industry verticals that are represented, etc. I will come back to the slide, but I want to make sure that along the way, we'll in fact do it perhaps during a break or something towards the end. We've been sending out many, many activities. All of the ones above the little squiggly line should be on your calendars. If not, drop me a note in chat. The ones in the bottom are the scoreable things that will go on. We will also be outside of our 4 Saturdays that we're spending in workshops run completely by TiE University charter members. We're also going to give you access to an all-encompassing startup bootcamp workshop being taught by Silicon Valley, where you'll be with other startups, not just university teams, and we'll put those on your calendar shortly. So just want you to be aware of that, okay? With that, I'm going to again put your stuff into questions, and I'll come back to some of those along the way. But I believe at this point, here's the calendar again for those of you who joined late. The bulk of the time is going to be the workshop. Towards the end, we'll have Q&A, but if you have Q&A, I think it's a small enough manageable group that you can certainly break in. And in that regard, we're not going to do a long introduction, but I'm very pleased to tell you that Paul Singh, who is located in Santa Clara, California, the heart of Silicon Valley, you can look up his LinkedIn profile. It's also on your calendar. He's a CMO, but more importantly, I think he's more than a serial entrepreneur. He's going to tell you in his first couple of slides. So with that, Paul, thank you for joining us with your cup of coffee, and we'll turn it to you and we'll let you share your slides at this point. And Paul, you should be on, right?
So I will drive my own slides. Can you just, yeah, I just want to see everybody on the screen. Can everybody turn their cameras on, please? Come on, don't hesitate. It's fine.
It was part of the instructions. So I know when you and I teach classes, Paul, we want to make sure the students aren't watching sports channels, right?
Yes, exactly.
Especially if they laugh or they cheer at the wrong time, then we'll know that they're not totally paying attention, right?
All right, Saloni, Suresh, Amrut, Urvashi, Victoria, Lauren. You know I'm going to call you guys out. So
yeah, and I'm forcing a start to ask to start video. So if you're not if you're seeing that you can't, you should be able to now.
And please keep them on so we know you are highly engaged.
You know, I'm a recovering professor, so therefore I have those bad habits. So I'm going to force it on you.
Good deal. Paul, why don't you do a 30-second introduction to yourself? I'll keep watching and get Amrut and Lauren, who are either in their PJs, but in which case just turn the camera on for your shoulders up.
Perfectly fine. So I was going to see who has the most creative background. And I guess Prasant gets that grade, I guess, followed by Omar, because
I just changed it on time.
The rest of you are all boring, just like my background. So anyway, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where all you guys are. So hopefully we woke you up in most cases. So we can make this session very interactive since all of you said you are ready. So therefore, let's assume this as somewhat of a test for all of us to see how ready we are, right? Everybody with me? I want to hear everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. No sir business. It's fine. We are all entrepreneurs here, right? Okay, so let me share my screen. And again, I'm afraid of sharing the screen because I don't want to lose you guys on the screen. So I'm going to switch between sharing and not sharing the screen as to make it more interactive. Okay? Okie dokie. Let me share the screen for a few minutes. All right. Everybody see my screen, I hope? So we're
Yes,
going to
sir.
talk about sales and marketing for startups. And my background just very quickly. And if anybody wants to reach me, these are the two places you can reach me at. R. Paul Singh is my handle on both of them. And being an entrepreneur, founded 5 companies with 1 going public, 3 being acquired, 1 taken to the ground. And I also teach at University of California, Berkeley, as well as at Northeastern. Sorry?
I think somebody didn't mute themselves. We'll do that.
So I thought what we will do today is, and we might get to only one part, doesn't matter, but in a startup, product matters the most. And so why don't we first talk about the 6 W's of getting the product right? And I'm assuming all of you are worried about your product. And then if we have time, we'll go into understanding the sales and marketing funnel. And then if time permits, we'll do a little bit of how do you do your initial sales. Sounds
And
good?
Paul, by end of day, I will upload the entire slide deck, so they will have access to all 3 parts no matter what.
All right. So what are the basics of your product? I said these are the 6 things, and I'm going to go through each of them. So let's talk about the first one. Who's your customer? So a lot of times what we think of as our customer is not really our customer. In every journey, there are users of your product, there are influencers of your product, and then there are buyers of your product. And they all need different treatment. So let me ask you guys, who do you think is the customer for Facebook? Anybody?
People that are selling ads or buying ads on Facebook, or companies, I guess, that are buying ads on Facebook.
And what about you and me?
I would say we're users.
Exactly. And who do you think are the influencers for Facebook?
Social media influencers?
One of them, and there are many others, right? So let's talk about any one company in your, who wants to talk about their company? If you don't volunteer, then I'm going to start calling out names. So tell me one person who wants to go and talk about who is the user, buyer, and influencer for their companies. Anyone? Hello?
I guess I can go. I can go ahead.
Go for it.
So I'm a part of Aerodyne Technologies, and we are building and selling an aerodynamic improving device for tractor trailers. So the users of our device are trucking drivers, but they're not actually buying it. Fleet managers or fleet owners rather are actually buying our device, so they would be our customer.
Mhm.
And influencers would probably be entities like like tractor trailer dealerships or brokers who have like a lot of connections with trucking fleets and things like that.
Excellent. Now you're missing something else, that there are, you may not always be selling to the fleets because you are a small company and fleets may not want to buy from you.
Yeah, there are also owner operators as well who would purchase from us, but they're about 9% of the market.
You know what? For a startup, which is just getting off the ground, they might be 100% of your customers.
Okay.
And this is something we are going to figure out. Who is my customer that we are going to focus on to win the initial battle, right? It is really important that you figure out who is my niche buyer who has a lot of pain, who is going to want to be my patient, i.e. my customer. Okay, so we'll go more into it. Anybody else wants to attempt to talk about their customer? One more.
So we can talk about ours. Akash
Sure.
Gupta, this side.
Yeah, go for it.
So we are building a kit for conventional diesel vehicles to power it with lithium-ion pack and motors, electric motors. So
Yeah.
in our case, the end users is going to be the drivers who will be actually driving our electric truck. The buyer will be a fleet operator who is in a marketplace or who is having a platform to manage their trucks. And influencers, I'm not very sure about, but it could be a company or a e-commerce company which wants clean truck in their fleets, or which have targets for reducing their global CO2 footprint. So they might be the influencers who will be asking their fleet providers to have electric trucks in their fleet.
Exactly. This is the point that you said, which I think I really love. And that is finding out what is the driver for your sale. And this is not the driver of the truck, but the driver of your sale. What is it that is going to cause this particular sale to occur? What is the problem? What is the reason somebody is going to buy? And this is one of the reasons sometimes the pressure itself from the society or being environmentally conscious or any one of those factors could become your influencers. It might influence the sale. So this is good. So,
hey, Paul?
Yeah.
This is Anand from TiE, Denver. I do want to add this to you. One of the things we also talk about is non-market strategy. And I think for this company, one of the influencer can be government or like environmental EPAs, where they can push companies to buy these kits. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So that will be influencer too?
Yeah. So what you call the non-marketing buyers are the ones I call influencers, because they have a very big influence in getting you through the end of the sales cycle. Sometimes they bring you a lead, sometimes they help you close. So this is why, as a company, I need to know who is my user, who is my buyer, and who is my influencer. And I got to keep all of them happy. If tomorrow Facebook decides that the user experience doesn't matter, do you think their buyers will stick to them? No way. They'll go away. This is why they have more engineers working on the user experience than on the ad side. So it is really important to understand. So just in the two examples you gave, if the driver does not like your product, even if the fleet is pushing, the end result is the product is not going to be used. So even if you got your first sale, you're now getting the second sale. So this is why it is important to understand all the people in your sale and how do you influence them. Okay. Oops, sorry. I think this is another thing that a lot of times, I think she had a great example just now saying we're going after fleet, but only 9% of them are owner drivers. And not even knowing your market, I can tell you that those 9% might be your most important segment today. So this cartoon is telling me that a lot of times when you ask a startup, who's your target customer? And they say, oh, I built things that are valid for everyone. So continue on Facebook. What do you think was the first customer of Facebook? Who do they focused on first? What was the segment they went after? Anyone?
Like
I want to hear from
college
someone
campuses.
new. Sorry?
College students at college campuses, specifically the Ivy League.
Exactly. They just focused on very simple, just Ivy League with the EDU domain. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to find that first segment that was going to adopt their product faster than any other segment. This is a key that you all have to understand. What is that fast segment that is going to buy your product first? As much as you create a great vision in your business plan that you're going to conquer the whole world, the success of the company is not going to come from that great vision. Okay, visions are dime a dozen at the end. What matters is how much sale can you do? And how do you sell? You first find the people or the segment that has the most use for your product. Once you find that, you win that one segment, you can expand. But if you don't succeed in your first one or two segments you select, you're toast. So it is really, really important. Okay, so let's talk about understanding the 3 W's. Who is your customer? What do you do? You could be solving a problem or creating a new habit like Facebook. And why are you best at it? And why now? Now, this is a very difficult, it's like, this is the crux of the business. And when I teach a class, the first time students come up with, probably 4 pages to describe this, and their challenge is to describe it in preferably 140, which thank God Twitter has made it 280 characters, and then go from there to 1 paragraph. So I'm going to give you some good examples. And once we look at a couple of examples, then we're going to come to you and see if you can describe, and we are going to dissect some of your positioning statements that you sent to me. Are we ready? Which one of these companies should we pick, guys? I have many names there. All right, I'm going to pick, let's just pick the freelancer.com. Can anybody tell me, what do they do?
So they connect the people who have a requirement to the people who can solve their requirement. So for example, I want to get an app design, they'll connect me to a designer, and I'll be paying the designer for my work.
Now you're telling this from a knowledge, or are you, I want you to just look at this site and tell me what it tells you. Does it tell you any of that?
So
it looks like an online platform for freelancers to connect those who have a demand for this.
But demand for what?
Demand for freelancers.
But freelancers to do what work? Anything?
Yeah, and
So
it describes any kind of job.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me give you another example, right? What do you think these guys do?
These guys are Upwork or, freelancer.com, but just for design. They have their own niche.
So if you need a logo or where are you going to go if you don't know these two companies by looking at their website?
I'm going to go with this guy, 99 Designs, because, they're specialized in designs and designing work, so I can trust them.
So see how your opinion got changed?
Yeah.
So the point of this is when you do your website, when you do your messaging, it better focus on what matters, i.e., you are going to focus on your customer and your niche. The tendency for all entrepreneurs is what? We want to play the big game. We want to start with conquering the world from day one. The problem is Rome wasn't built in a day. You always have to start small from your customer messaging point of view and then expand from there. And this is a key. Now, let's just stop this screen sharing for a minute. I am going to now go ahead and, oops, what the heck happened here? I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute. And I am going to ask for volunteers who have not spoken at all so far to take their company and let's dissect one of your positioning. Who wants to go? Shreyas, you ready?
Sure.
All right. You want to do a screen share and show me your positioning, or should I just put up yours on the screen? I can do that too. But the point is, we don't want to do that. So we want you to tell us. So go ahead and tell us. You can unmute yourself, please.
Yes. So my positioning in team is like doing platform engineering for electric kit products. It's like less business, more of engineering kind of thing. So that we can easily replace current ICE vehicle through a kits which can be easily mounted on the current vehicle without any much time consumed, and also its reliability point of view and everything.
Okay. So now we are all neophytes. We don't know your business.
Yes.
Or maybe I am your buyer. You meet me in the elevator and the elevator test is a 1 sentence, 7-second test.
Okay.
So just by the way, one thing that everybody should know, an average user stays on a website for 7 seconds.
Yes.
Within those 7 seconds, you are going to show the user one screen. And within that screen, you got to make sure that they are interested in learning more about you. Otherwise, they're gone. So what is your 7-second message to the team here? What do? Go for it. And by the way, before I say 1 second, I just want to make sure the idea here is not to embarrass anybody, guys. We are all on the same team. So I am trying to help. So if it looks like I'm picking on somebody or making comments or critique, it's not personal. It is only for your good. So take it with the spirit that it is being said, right? So go for it. Go, Shreyas.
So like first sentence I would start is like, oops, the petrol price are at new high and transportation cost is also aligning with those petrol prices. So we need some alternate solution to actually transportation is like added cost in most of the like every product. Let's say for even for vegetables to from grocery to everything, transportation costs always is actually had some weightage in overall cost determination of any product. So and since variable petrol costs and rising petrol cost is a major challenge that that actually impacts the price of the product which a normal person in which is in my left, which is in my elevator, uh, is will be buying. So what my main focus will be to give him the idea that our solution is trying to bring that transportation cost so that the end user, which actually paying the cost of simple grocery product to different life like life saving products,
So
it
Shreyas, let me try a different way. No, I don't want you, you're on the wrong path. Okay, I want you to get on the right path. Maybe I didn't said it correctly. So what I want you to do is tell me, I come to your website, what's the one-liner and then a one sentence underneath it that will make me stick and want to know more.
okay. So petrol prices are high. Check out our solution, reduce transportation cost.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, and then what do you offer?
We offer like electrification kits for various tonnage vehicle, depending on what tonnage the vehicle are.
So your focus is the trucker,
So
right?
it's like a whole range of product. Like our like main focus is now on 2.5 to between 2.5 to 7.5 tonnage vehicles. It can be lightweight cargo vehicles, like majorly used in India actually, where our main business is focused. So in that area, you will find mostly this current tonnage vehicle. So our basic aim is to like provide electrification for those.
Okay, so you are providing, you are basically doing what people used to do in the taxi business when they became green. They were giving those, conversion into gas. So you are doing an electric conversion kit, right?
Yes, it's a like start to market pro plan. Like first we will start enter the market with our electric electrification kit. And our long term plan is to have our own trucks, which can be seen on market. Like want to we want
Okay,
to
you're going in the opposite direction. I want to bring the position down, right? So what you are saying is you help convert. So if I am coming to your website, you're going to tell me, convert your truck to electric, save money, save environment.
yes, that can be.
Now, do you think I will want to stay on your site and want to know more?
Mm,
This is the message I'm giving, simple.
yes.
So you see how we took a 500 word thing into this very simple message that will get me interested. Once you get interested, now I'll give you the one sentence version. Once you you read my one sentence, now you are interested in saying, what else am I going to say? So this is a communication vehicle. You know, if you watch any TV shows, what do? The reason they do this is they do character building, right? To get you hooked. And so they kind of getting you hooked every time. So they get you hooked. Now you want to know the next episode. Now you want to go to the next episode. This is human psychology. We got to play on that psychology as marketeers, where we first tell you the very high level. If you're not interested, in fact, if you're not interested, I don't want you to stay on my site either, because you are a burden to me at that point, because you're not my buyer. So it's okay to weed out people who are not my buyers as well. Okay. All right. Let's switch again to back to the presentation. Let me just show you one other example now that we are on it. Just 1 second. I think I didn't share the whole screen. Hopefully they haven't changed the message, but this is one of the best message that I'm a fan of. Okay, you see what happened first of all on the URL. So the first thing they did is they discovered I'm calling from the US. Immediately they changed to the US message. Now, obviously you don't have this problem right now, but it's just very interesting to know. And what do they do? Is that clear? Does everybody get what they do?
Yes.
Does their second line tell you everything else?
Yes.
And what is their CTA? Does everybody know what the word CTA means? Anybody wants to talk about?
Yeah,
Come on,
call
by now you would
to
have
action.
Googled it. Yes. Call to action. Every message, every email, every communication you do has to have a call to action. So in this case, their call to action is what? What are the two CTAs they have?
Either to try for free or to buy now.
Exactly. So when you write your email, I am used to getting emails from people where I read an email for 10 minutes. And then at the end of the email, I say, what do you want me to do? Nothing. So there is no point in sending an email which doesn't tell me what you want me to do with what you asked for. So this is a way to communicate. This is not just about website. You need to change your whole persona in how you communicate. Everything has a start, a middle, and a CTA. Somebody here has some, yeah, thank you. Okay, so I think this was an example I wanted to make sure that you understand. This is called a very clear communication. It says what they do. It tells you who the customer is, right? So what do? They do accounting software. For who? For small business. What is their benefit? It works anywhere you do. And oh, by the way, it lives in the cloud, which means you can automate everyday business tasks, get up-to-date financials, and run your business from wherever you are. And they feel good that they are giving you a trial for free. Or if you're already sold, you can go buy. So this is the classic of who is your customer, what problem do you solve, and why are you best at it, and why now? So this is a key to a messaging for anything and everything you do in life. So when your company cannot describe this very clearly, you are not going to go anywhere. So this is where you should spend a most amount of time to get it right. Okay. So the next question comes up, what should I call my product? Right? I mean, this is like a classical, thing that people are spending a lot of time trying to figure out what should they call their product. One classical mistake the startup does is the company name is ABC and the product name is XYZ. A startup has tough time getting people to remember their own name. And then on top of that, trying to market two names is very, very difficult. So try not to create too many brand names in the beginning. Have one product name. So whenever you're not talking, please put yourself on mute so that we don't get the background noise. When you're talking, it's okay to unmute yourself. Now for a startup, the other thing that is important is who do you partner with? Do you see this? How many of you have taken a ride on an elephant? Probably many of you, right? Yes? You have to mute yourself when you say yes.
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 Okay. So what are the three things that matter when you ride on an elephant? You can be, you can be here in the front, right? If you're in the front, what do you end up doing? if you want to avoid the elephant and you are in the front, what do you have to do? You have to run faster than the elephant, right? And the elephant, think of the elephant in your space. Every space has an elephant, meaning the big company that you are ultimately trying to think about, can I compete with them or can I partner with them? But right now they're not, they're not quite in this space. So the worst strategy is to be in front of the elephant, because as a startup, you got to run all the time. And generally what we say is you need a 24 months lead against your competition when you stand in front of the elephant. And that is very hard to maintain, right? And so that's one strategy. The other strategy is the one here. You see how much space the elephant has in between its legs? A lot. And if, as a small company, sometimes you can just survive under the legs of the elephant. This is a strategy, what I call, I have done a feature of a large company product because they didn't get their feature right. And so I think people will buy from me. And that's okay strategy, but elephant does not know you exist underneath it and might end up crushing you without knowing it. So that is a strategy that doesn't always work either. The only strategy that is viable for a startup is to ride on top. And if you have taken a ride on the top, it is still a very bumpy ride. But if I would rather be between these three positions, I would rather be here. So what does that mean? What that means is, let's figure out who is the elephant I am going to use in my space that will help me grow. That is where my customers are already hanging out. Because remember, nobody knows you. Nobody knows who you are in the beginning. You need to find the elephants to ride on. So to give you an example, I was working for a company, consulting for a company where they were probably generating on their website maybe 1,000 organic visitors a month. And then they were doing a CRM software. So as a CRM software, they felt, okay, let me register for Zero.com. Let me register for Intuit.com. Let me become a partner of Google. So let me become a partner of, somebody, whoever, is relevant in my space. And pretty soon they started to see 5 people from one side, 10 from another, 20 from another. And pretty soon they had more visitors coming in reference from other sites than their own. So the point of this exercise I'm trying to tell you is there is a right time, and that as a startup, you need to think about in the beginning, who is going to be the partner I'm going to focus on. Now, you may not get there immediately, but long-term, the only way you can scale is by leveraging somebody else's sale. You cannot build that many feet on the street or that many people or that much marketing muscle. So therefore, you need to find out who to leverage, someone who will benefit by a relationship with you. So let me ask you, who wants to take this in your business? Somebody who we have not talked to yet, who can tell me, for your companies, who do you think could be a potential partner for you? Anyone who has not spoken yet? And please unmute yourself if you want to speak.
I can speak. So my
Sure.
company is Aerodyne Technologies, and we develop aerodynamic attachments that go on the rear of tractor trailers to decrease drag force and increase fuel economy. And one of our most important partners would be trailer manufacturers, because that's actually one of our marketing strategies to actually get this device to the customers quickest.
Excellent. So have you identified who are they?
Yes, so we've talked to both dealers and manufacturers. Actually, we've already made a partnership with Rush Truck Centers, and we're looking into Wabash, Great Dane, and Utility right now.
Excellent. So one thing I'll tell you based on experience, so people like Bosch and others will probably give you a very hard time in the beginning. They will want to see some proof point. So in the beginning, you will have to find your first few customers. Once you have your 5 customers, now going to Bosch will be way more helpful than if you went to them before having any customers. Right? Is that what you're finding?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think the other thing that is important is how much should I sell my product for? And you know, most of the time when you ask an entrepreneur, how much do they sell your product for? It used to be based on, it cost me $5, therefore I will sell it for 10. What do you think is the biggest cost for a startup besides the price of the product? Anyone?
Labor to produce it.
No, not at all.
So,
Material.
the cost to acquire a customer and what is the cost to maintain a customer?
The only thing that matters first is CAC. Remember this word. Even if somebody wakes you in the sleep, you should know the word CAC, CAC, customer acquisition cost. A startup lives and dies by customer acquisition cost. When you go to talk to an investor, they're going to ask you, hey, how are you going to acquire the customer? So if your customer, so let's assume most of you who are doing software products, your cost is 0. And if you tell somebody my cost is 0, that is a fallacy. Because you might be spending $10, $20, $30, $40, $100,000 to acquire a customer. So how efficient are you in acquiring a customer is a test of how good your business is. This is why we do partnerships, because we want to reduce our customer acquisition cost. Right? So the most important thing in a business is to understand not just the product cost. Product cost is important, don't get me wrong. It is important, you know, all the labor costs, all the components that go into building a product. But, you know, the most important thing is how much does it cost for you to acquire a customer? And that means I need to figure out what is my product and how do I sell my product? So let's assume, you know, let's talk about, let's say Dropbox. And everybody knows Dropbox, right? And so Dropbox sells for about $10 a month.
Yes.
So how much do you think Dropbox can afford to spend on acquiring an end user? We're not talking business right now. We're talking end user. Anybody?
Like less than $120.
Less than 120. And how do you come up with that?
So if it's $10 per month, 12 months in a year, 120 for the year. So they probably don't want to spend more per year to acquire a customer than they would make from the customer.
And what do you think they will make from the customer? What is that called?
Like sales per customer.
We have a term for it called LTV, lifetime value of a customer.
Oh,
so
right.
We assume that this customer will stick with us for 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever years. So in general, most of the software products, people stay in business for about 3 to 4 years. So therefore, my lifetime value of you to Dropbox may be $480, right? And therefore, I'm willing to spend money on you for maybe my first 6 months revenue or my first 1 year revenue in customer acquisition cost. Now, if you were the head of products for Dropbox and you had to decide how to acquire these customers, how would you do it? What would you do to acquire these customers? Anyone? Come on, any ideas?
We can
Yeah.
go with some organizations like because Dropbox is a collaborative when there is a working in collaboration, then you need a Dropbox. So some organization in which some sort of designing work or some collaboration is needed, and so we can target them first instead of going and hunting for a single customer. So B2B strategy in this case will help to get big chunk, and we don't need to get the revenue from users. We can get the revenue from the organization. So we can sell the value to the organization, which will drive the sales.
Hold on. What is wrong with this argument is the following. So if I want to sell to 1,000-person company, what do you think I need?
I need initial customers first to tell that company.
No, forget it. I want to sell the 1,000 users only. I have no zero customer, right? I'm going on the question, the philosophy somebody just said. So let's say I want to sell 1,000 user deal right away. What do I need?
You need a backend support infrastructure to link all those.
Guys, you are an engineer, right? So I'm a recovering engineer, and I agree with you. As an engineer, that will be my answer. The problem is the business is not about engineering. The business is about marketing and sales. So I will need, 1,000 user deal is not going to be done, first of all, in a day. It will take a couple of months. Secondly, I'm going to need a very expensive salesperson who's going to call on this customer on a regular basis. They're going to buy from me because they have a long 6-month process, which means I'm going to spend on this salesperson $200,000 to $300,000 a year. So don't forget these things, because that's what it takes to sell.
You need a strong business development team.
And that is going to cost you money. So what did Dropbox do? They did a very brilliant way, which is why they are where they are. What do you think is one strategy they thought about, and why I'm doing this in the product section? Because as an engineer, you need to start thinking about it. As a product builder, you need to think about it now. What is that one thing they did? Anybody? By now you would have Googled it and told me the answer, but let me tell you, it's a very simple thing, but they did a beautiful thing, which is what you just said. They are a collaborative software. You need two to tango in their case. So what did they do? They said, oh, Mr. Customer, I'll give you 2 gigabytes free, provided you bring me another customer, you invite another one. If you invite the other one, I'll give him 2 gigabyte free, and I'll give you 2 gigabyte free as well. And 2 gigabyte of storage probably cost them $1. So therefore, their customer acquisition cost was that $1 for you to come into their site and start using it. And that was a brilliant strategy, because they did not have to advertise after that. They didn't have to spend money on advertising it. So the point I am trying to tell you in this is, based on how much your product costs, you are going to decide, how do I sell that product? So if your product only costs less than $500, this is the US context, but you can always convert it into the context of the companies you are in. So if your product only costs $500 a year, there is no way you can afford to touch every deal. Now, beginning deals, you will have to touch every customer. That's a different story. But long term, you can build a business plan which says, my product costs less than 500, and oh, by the way, I am going to have a sales force. It doesn't work. And if your product costs $500 to $1,000, maybe you can afford a telesales team. And if your product costs minimum of $5,000 and up, maybe you can start to afford a channel of distribution or a salesperson to call upon them. And the reason I have a question mark between 1,000 to 5,000 is there are some price points which are what we call no man's land. This is one of those which is called a no man's land. But fortunately, thanks to COVID, it's no more a no man's land because people are willing to do even a $5,000 deal now on the phone. So now this whole chart, thanks to COVID, is going to be very different. But the point of this exercise was to make you understand how should you price your product. Think of your customer acquisition cost from day one while you build your product, while you decide how to price it. You don't price it based on the cost. You price it on what is it sells for in the market. Okay? Everybody with me still?
Is it significant in case of an hardware? Because this term is more for a software product or a software as a service, but does it matter significant when you have a hardware to sell?
Yes, it is also true. And we look at not the cost as in the software price, but we look at the margin. So it's the same concept in some sense, right? So let's assume I am selling a massager and my massager costs me $100. I mean, I sell a massager for $100, but I acquire it for $40. So I have a $60 of the money I can spend on acquiring the customer. So now massager is not a collaborative product, but I could offer an incentive to my customer to say, if you bring me a new customer or if you buy one for every member of your family, I can give you a discount. So my point is, start thinking as a whole package as a product. So you have to look at all these aspects. Now, sometimes there are certain products that only get bought by a certain way, right? Before Dropbox came into the market, you couldn't actually buy a file sharing software off the web. The only way you could actually buy it was through enterprise sales. And the price of the product, because of the enterprise sale, were very, very high. Let's give a very simple example. WebEx versus Zoom. All of you know that product, right? Now, WebEx was only sold as an enterprise when Zoom came into the business. You couldn't buy a WebEx for less than $40 to $50 a month. And on top of that, it was really only valuable if you had 1,000, you had 100 to 200 employee buying it. So Zoom came in and said, you know what? I'm going to charge $10 per user per month. They removed the resistance for somebody to try and buy. Now it's interesting that every other product is now at the same price point. But they just disrupted the whole market by changing the pricing. So sometimes they not only change the pricing, but they also change the distribution because everything was bought off the web. So sometimes that's the innovation you have to do. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you go back to the no man's land pricing?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So, thanks. So you said if the cost of the product is between $1,000 and $5,000, then
this is the price. This is the price per year. So if 1 year I'm going to make $4,000 to $5,000 from the customer, it was very difficult to sell on a phone, but also you needed a sales force and you can't afford a sales force at that price.
Oh, okay.
Fortunately, not anymore.
Okay.
Because people are now used to buying.
Okay, and so that $1,000 to $5,000 was like per unit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So outside of COVID times, what is the best way? Because we're in that price point. That's what I'm asking. So outside of COVID times, what is the best way to acquire customers?
So I mean, look. So you are $1,000 to $5,000 product, right?
Yeah.
And how many is one customer going to buy? How many of these units? Is he only going to buy one unit?
It ranges a lot. So most trucking companies, like 90%. Most trucking companies have
If you're not
like
speaking, put yourself on mute. If you're not talking, please put yourself on mute. Yeah.
thanks. So most trucking companies have between like 20, it's kind of a big range, like 20 trucks and 20 trailers and like 500 trailers. That's like 95% of the market, something like that. 90% of the market. So most of the sales that most unit volumes I'll get are around like 20 to, I don't know, 20 to 100 maybe, I would say.
I think you answered your question. So that means you are really not looking to sell $1,000 per customer. You are looking to sell $20,000 to a customer.
Yeah, that would be the goal.
Yeah. So that's how you need to start thinking, right? This is what is it that I'm going to get from a customer?
Okay.
Because once you acquire a customer, so your first 5 sale may be a loss.
Yeah.
But then are you going to get the next 15 at a profit? That's what matters in your case.
Okay. And the referral schemes are similar too, right? So I guess you kind of touched on that with the massage examples. Okay.
Hey, Paul, I have a question here.
Sure.
So I think there is a small flaw in this strategy because first estimating your expenditure and then coming to a price point to which you should sell to your customer. You should also look at what value you're adding to the customer, because if I'm selling you a product at 20 rupees, but then it's only giving you the value of 100 rupees, then why would you buy a product? So the point which comes here is that first, we should also estimate the value which you are adding to the customer, and then find out what's a realistic point which a customer would be agreeable to buy it for, and then you adjust your expenditure as well. Because when you say that you have to, consider your sales and marketing team expenditure and your customer acquisition cost, sales and marketing team can also be adjusted in a several way that it affects your pricing. I can opt for just a social media marketing team, or I can, have a sales guy who, goes to door and sells my product. Those things also affects the price hugely, but it also depends on what the customer is willing to buy your product at. Would you like to add some point there?
Okay. So you are right, and you are also wrong. So let me just explain to you. So what is the value in customers' mind is number one thing, right? So you can't infinitely increase your price to $500 just because it costs you $495 to acquire a customer. You just can't do that, right? A customer is going to give you what they think is the value. So value is in the eye of the beholder, i.e. your customer, and the market in general, right? If all the other relative products are going for $50, you can't say, I am going to charge more unless you are Apple, right? Apple comes in and says, I am going to charge $500 to $1,000 for this phone, which you are selling for $200, right? So they can afford to do that. But as a startup, you can afford to charge more, provided your customer is willing to, there is value in customers' eye that they're willing to pay more. However, so that ceiling is set, right? You know where you can go. You can either go at the low end of the range or you can go at the high end of the range. So that's a market is going to set the range for you. But now let's assume even if you go at the highest range and your customer acquisition cost, because your customer doesn't hang out on social media. Your customer requires you to go, let's say you are selling to some rural market where there is no social media. You got to go door to door and sell. You have to say on door-to-door selling, what is it that I can buy this salesperson for? What is my cost of acquisition that each of them are going to bring? Now you can't adjust that. And if that costs you $200 to acquire and your product is a $100 product, that's a losing business. I don't care what you do. It's never going to fix it. You can't fix your marketing cost. You got to design your marketing cost. So the fallacy in your argument is that I can fix my marketing cost by hiring a social media versus this. BS. No, your customer buys in a certain way and you can't change that buying. So therefore you have to adapt to how the customer buys and figure out, hey, if my customer doesn't hang out on these platform, how am I going to reach out to them? So you have to calculate, what does it take to reach out to that customer, and can I afford it or not? If you can't afford it, your business is a failure and you should shut your shop and not move on until you fix that. Okay?
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, guys. This is for the engineer in me. I figured I got to give you some engineering exercise. So how do you decide, how do I use a channel of distribution? So channel of distribution is a function of how I deliver my product, whether I do online or ship to destination. How much assistance do I need? Do I need no assistance? Do I need minor assistance? Do I need high level of assistance? What kind of customer type do I have? Is it an individual? Is it a small business? Is it a department? Is it a medium business? Is it a large department? Is it a large company? Is my average sale price in the less than $1,000 range? Is it 1 to 10K? Is it average 10 to 100K or high? All these combinations together will help you decide what is the best way for you to distribute your product. Okay? Now, I won't go into the details of this, but you will be able to see when you sit down on it. So there are a couple of cases given to you as to what will be the right channel for you. So for example, if you're, I'll give you one example. So if you have a product which requires minor assistance and you want to sell direct from the web and telesales or retail, but let's say your product is priced at less than $100 and it requires a lot of assistance, more than likely you are not going to succeed. So the price is not just a factor of CAC. It is also a factor of understanding. First of all, like I think Aditya was the one who said, it matters about what is the customer willing to pay. Then I need to see what does it take to reach that customer? What are the different components? Can I sell it through the channel? Therefore, I can reduce my cost. Now, in the beginning, it might cost me more. That's okay. But I want to make sure that once my business gets to a certain level, that I can actually use an alternative channel. And can I or can I not? So I need to calculate all these things. And this is why these are things you need to start thinking when you design your product, not after your product is done. 99% of the software products fail because they don't think of customer acquisition. They don't build an engine within their products when they think about this. And so we don't have time to go into too many examples of this, but this is a key. And this is true even for hardware products, guys. It doesn't matter. I mean, right now there is nothing called a software versus hardware. Everything is software. Even your hardware product is a software. If you have an experience of a Tesla car, you know that it is a software product. There is nothing called hardware. It's basically software on wheels. That's all it is. Everything is configured remotely. Everything is changed remotely. Customer experience is totally controlled by them remotely. So if you are thinking of building a hardware where you have not thought about how you are going to control this customer experience remotely, rethink, because long-term, it's a bad business. Okay? Short-term, you might get some sale, but long-term, it's very hard to compete. Okay, so this is the chart. You can go through it. I think this is important. I want you to read it for a minute. So I think Dilbert said it best. The reason a product everyone likes will fail because no one loves it. It is really important that you have a product where there are few people who love your product. Then everybody who says, oh yeah, it's great. I like it. The Facebook like, I will just give it to you. You know what? That like has zero value. There is no value in that like. The value is in somebody who takes your thing and comments and says, hey, I tried this. This was the coolest thing. And by the way, here are the 5 things I loved about it. And then told their friends. That is a love. That's not just a like. So it is really, really important for a startup to find the first 10 for a B2B and first 100 for a B2C customers who love your product, who are really in love with your product. And the love means they're willing to go out on a limb, they're willing to talk about you, they're willing to tell their friends, and they're willing to go out on a limb in social media and in other places to defend you. If you don't have those in the beginning of the product, within the first launch of your product, go back to your drawing board. That means your product is not done right. Okay? Questions, comments before we go to the next section? Okay, I'm going to assume. All right, let's talk about understanding the sales and marketing funnels. Does everybody know what a sales and marketing funnel is? Yes? I'm going to assume yes, but if not, it's coming up. So what do you think the answer is? Anybody?
Forever.
Forever. You don't want to be in that spot, right? So this is one thing that classically engineers think, that I built the best product, therefore people should knock on my door and come and buy it. And you know, it used to be true once upon a time, not anymore. The reason it is not true is because we have too many products. Customer is confused as ever because there are too many alternatives. And this is why, and it is very hard to now come up with a product that is 100% unique. So therefore, you need to sell and market from day one. So what does a sales and marketing process look like? Now, if you Google sales and marketing funnel, you will probably get 1,000 variations of it. But my point here is not to give you the technically correct version, but make sure you understand what does it take to do a sales and marketing thing. Like, for example, in the company I'm at, we have a 4-stage marketing cycle alone and a 5-stage sales cycle and a 4-stage customer cycle. So that's not what I want to get from you, but I want you to understand a sales and marketing process always starts with somebody, what I call suspect, someone who might be interested in your product. And that is what we call top of the funnel. Once somebody comes to the top of my funnel, my job as a marketer / sales is to qualify them. So let's think of, you know, you are all familiar with retail sales. You all go and buy products. And think of the time when you went into a store with your spouse or your, you know, whoever, or yourself trying to buy a sari. Think of the sari shop. As soon as you enter, that salesperson, if he or she is a good salesperson, immediately figures out if you are likely to be a buyer or not by asking you few questions to say, what should I show you? Are you looking for A or B or C? And they also obviously look at you and what you are wearing. And based on all of that, they try to make a decision to qualify to see if you are likely to be a person that I should spend my time on. And at that point, once they have qualified you, they might actually figure out sometimes a junior person attends to you, qualifies you, and then sends you to the senior salesperson when they know you are a prospect. Now, once you are a prospect, sometimes you buy right away. Sometimes you don't buy right away. You might come back 3-4 times before you end up buying. So that means they got to figure out a way to follow up with you to make you a customer. In the olden days, once you became a customer, people said, okay, I'm done. The new world doesn't behave like this. In the new world, customer is your best way to get a new customer. This is what I said, building a love wall, making sure that the customer or a percentage of your customers love your product. So they become your references. And that is the process of crossing the love wall. So these are the 4 aspects of the product that you have to, or the sales and marketing process, you have to constantly think about in your own business. Okay. So what's your objective? As a sales/marketing, as an entrepreneur, your objective is how do you get the suspects to come inexpensively as possible? So you have a website or you have some phone system or something where your customers are going to, your prospects/suspects are going to reach you. You have to put a process in place to quickly convert these suspects into customers with the least amount of cost. And then your other goal is to get your customers to become references. So let's walk through each of them. How do you find your suspect? The first place finding your suspect is your address book, people you know. Now, some of you are doing business where you may not have anybody in your address book, like you are doing a trucking business, right? Where I'm assuming you don't have anybody in your address book to start with that you can reach out to. But you may find some mentors who might be able to help you. You may find other people on other places that you can reach out to. So that's the first place you're going to find your suspects. You can also find your suspects on social networks. Where do people hang out? Sometimes discussion forums, sometimes LinkedIn. So if your customer does not go on LinkedIn, there is no point in you trying to find your prospects there. But if your customer doesn't hang out on any of these places, don't waste your time. And you need to figure out where does your customer hang out the most. Now, as a startup, there is always an thing about let's get on every place possible. That's the worst mistake you can do. There is no point on being in a network where you can't support it. So it's better to be on few, but do it right and find the right customers there. Okay. Another place, which I am sure for the trucking business, it will be very important, is trade shows. Unfortunately, they don't happen anymore, but they will be coming soon. There are conferences, there are meetups. The good news is they've all become virtual. So for anybody in the B2B business, I think the meetups are the best resources you can go to as a startup because they are free. Does everybody know meetups? Yes? Anyone? Anyone has a question on understanding meetups, or should I go to the next one? Yeah. If you want to say something, unmute yourself, please. Okay.
Hi there, Paul. I wouldn't mind you going into more detail about meetups.
Sure. So the best place to think about a meetup is it's a small group of people coming together based on a one interest group in a very localized way. So if you go to meetup.com, you can say, show me the people who are interested in, I don't know, trucking business in my neighborhood. What are the meetups within 100 miles of my location that are doing trucking? Or I can go to say, show me all the meetups that happen in, Santa Clara related to trucking business. You may not find exactly trucking business, but you might find something still related to that. So there are people who are like-minded, who are hanging out there. They may not be your buyers a lot of times, but sometimes, as they say, misery needs company. As an entrepreneur, you need a lot of company because it's a lonely journey and you need the help of a lot of people to help you along the process. Sometimes even your competitors are helpful. So you want to hang out with people who are sort of dealing with the similar problems, even if they're not your buyers, and you get new ideas. So the idea of the meetup is you attend a virtual meetup with some place. If in one meetup I get one good customer, good prospect, or a good individual I talk to, it's worth it for me to spend an hour. So that's how I look at it. And it doesn't cost me anything because remember, an entrepreneur's time is free. Because right now your time has no value. I'm sorry to say, but that's how entrepreneurs ought to think about it, right? Your time is like, you got to figure out what works. Now, if it doesn't work for you after you tried once or twice, give up. You got to figure out what works for your business and then totally hone on it. Discard everything else for the short term until you have maxed out what you could get from that channel. So it's a matter of experimentation and figuring it out what works for your business. Once you have, double down on it for the short term, because in marketing, nothing works forever. Whatever worked yesterday is not going to work tomorrow. So make sure that you continue to evolve, but at the same time, so this is my formula of marketing. I am always doubling down on one thing and I'm experimenting with a new thing. And if that experiment works very well, I start shifting more dollars towards the experiment that was successful and slowly wean off of the one where I was spending a lot of money because that was my doubling down, but now it is trying to peter out. So I got to go somewhere else. Okay. Now, this is something that all of you, no matter whether you're selling hardware, software, whatever, you got to understand. And that is, you are going to build assets, and those are digital assets. And you're going to apply different tactics in distributing your assets. And you're going to measure results. Based on your results, you are going to measure them and change your assets and your tactics. Because nothing works forever. Plus, you don't know what's going to work for your business. This is what you have to figure out and decide. So what could be the assets? The assets, the number one asset for you is going to be your website. Second asset is your social sites. So by that, what I mean is you're going to build if your business hangs out, your customers or your prospects hang out on Facebook, you want to make sure that the Facebook site is similar to your website in messaging. If your customers hang out on LinkedIn, you want to make sure your LinkedIn site is done well. And if you happen to sell your product on mobile, you got to make sure that that is correct. Now, if you are, again, a hardware site, that concept doesn't change. You need a website. You need to figure out where your customers hang out, and you need to make sure that you have a presence on those sites. If, let's say, you are in trucking business and there are, say, 100 associations where the trucking companies might be going to, you want to make sure you build a relationship with those associations so that they start mentioning you somewhere or the other, as an example. Then you need to have content, and content can come in various forms depending on your business. Sometimes it's just a fun video. Sometimes it's a very detailed white paper. Sometimes it is what we call an ebook. So I am trying to teach you something, but I'm teaching you because I want you to be my customer. So the content is very important, but you have to figure out what is the right content for your business. And, you know, many a times you go to different websites, you don't understand because their product is too complex, they can't explain it. Then what they do, they create a small video on the site which explains to you what it does. And so my point is that's content. The other thing that you can do early on is build a database of your customers. This is a very valuable asset that most startups start thinking about after it is like, after they have done 100 customers and then they can't find who were their customers. So start to use some kind of a CRM from day one so that you capture every customer detail, because that is going to become important to you as you grow. PR, sorry. And then, talk about PR. Now, reviews. For some products, you might be surprised that the reviews are so important. And by the way, we all know reviews don't happen on their own. You got to work on them. You got to make sure you find those customers who love you to give the reviews, because even people who love you, they have to be nudged, right? And then trade shows and meetups are other assets. And then there are tactics and distribution. Your website requires some SEO, SEM, your social sites require social media marketing, and so on. So we don't have time to go through each of them. And also, for all of your businesses, you're not going to do all of this day one. You're going to figure out what works best for you in the short term. Like, for example, SEO for a startup is a waste of money because nothing is going to change for the first 6 months. So if you are investing in SEO for a startup, think next 2 years, not in the beginning. But if you are looking at software business and you need a quick deal, quick results, you might want to do an SEM, which is the search engine marketing, and SEO is search engine optimization. All right, I think we're not going to spend time on it. We talked a little bit about it already. And like I said, you have to, if you are selling a product, focus on your website. On your website, there might be, your goal is either to convert a customer, or your goal is to make sure that they fill out a form so you have a way to reach out to them, right? And so the qualification criteria is what we call a band, which is, does this customer have a budget? Does this person have an authority? Does this person have a need? And does this person have a right timing to buy my product? Once you establish from the band that this customer is a possibility, then you figure out a way to nurture them. Because some products people will buy right away. Some products need 6, 9 months, 1 year, 18 months sales cycle to buy. So for example, one of the companies that I'm right now the CMO for is a company called Okera. And our buying cycle is about 12 to 18 months. So we nurture a customer because out of sight, out of mind. So you got to figure out a way to nurture the customer, meaning stay in their face. Even if this means receiving an email from you or receiving a social media feed or something. If they don't see you when they are ready to buy, you're not going to be on their radar and you're going to miss out. So this is one way that if your product costs a lot of money, you need to build a landing page. You got to understand, once I have a website and people are coming in, how do I make sure they express an interest? I go to many websites and they don't even have a good contact us form. They don't even tell me how to contact them. That's a waste of resources. So whenever you go to contact us, there should be a form which says, okay, you fill out this information and we will contact you. And by the way, if those deals on the contact us, yes, there will be a lot of junk, but as an entrepreneur, you better have a process in place that anything that comes as a contact us, that you pay attention to that, because many of them might be your actual customers. And then, setting a process as if your product, if you are going to set up a flow of how you are going to deal with your customers in terms of, hey, if they come to my site, if they do certain action, what should I do? If they did this action, that means they are interested, and so on. So you got to set a process in place once you grow a little bit. And crossing the follow-up wall. How many times do you think you have to follow up with somebody before you get a response? Anybody?
4 follow-ups, what I have seen in my case. 4 to 5
You're lucky.
follow-ups.
You're lucky. It used to be 4 to 5 until about 5 years ago. Now there is so much overload. Even to get a response from somebody you know is 7 to 12 touches. We call it 7 to 11 touches, 7-11. Now, what does a touch mean? In fact, I may have a slide on it. Hold on 1 minute.
Paul, I have a question here. So pinging them 7 to 11 times before they even respond, doesn't that make it disturbing for them?
So you have, okay, look, you have to do it gently, right? You don't have to, it shouldn't appear. So there is a very fine line you cross when you become annoying, right? So don't become annoying. So the touch does not mean I'm going to tell you to buy from me every time. So for example, I'm in trucking business and there is a good article that you wrote somewhere that has appeared in a magazine or you did a blog. It's okay to send me that blog. I'm not asking you to buy anything, but this way I'm staying in touch with you, right? And I see that you posted an article on LinkedIn about something which may be related to me. So you know what? I will just do a little comment on your article. That's a touch. So touch does not mean, so one of the worst mistake you can do, which I see that a lot, I send somebody sends me a LinkedIn invite, I accept it. The next email says, I am selling this product. Are you interested in buying? I am discontinuing that person from my LinkedIn after that. I'm never going to pay attention to them. Right?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it so happens I am actually in the market for that product when you reach out to me. And I might say, tell me more. Right? Which is fine. But when you reach out to me first time, don't try to sell me immediately. Try to build a relationship. And a relationship building requires 7 to 11 touches before I am ready to talk to you. And the touches are, number one, a person face-to-face meeting. If I touch you face-to-face, it becomes harder for you to say no to me. Now, for many businesses, I can't afford to touch you face-to-face, right? The next important touch is maybe a Zoom touch. I had a meeting with you. You gave me the chance to talk to me. More than likely, it becomes a little harder for me to say no after that. The next touch might be an email or maybe a phone call, sorry. And so phone call is important. Yes, I can say more no on the phone call than otherwise. Next touch value is email. The next touch is the social. For social, for me to just ignore you is very, very easy. I won't bother. So the point is you got to figure out at some point when to stop and how to do the communication. So both are important.
Okay, so Paul, I do have a follow-up question. So in case I am approaching a customer, which can be a big client to me in future. So how should I approach them? So should I ask them for a feedback first and and maintain all these touches, and then I should tell them, okay, could you buy this product?
Okay, great question. First of all, let's understand one thing. Everybody loves praise, right? So when you reach out to me, you've looked at my background, you put some nice words about my background, and you are saying, hey, I'm interested in your feedback because you are an expert in the industry and we are working in such and such area. Would you be interested to give me 10 minutes of your time? As an example. Now I may say, oh, okay, fine. So now I went through all this little discussion. And again, you're not trying to do a product pitch yet. You're saying, hey, by the way, I know you're working on ABC and this is what we're doing. So I wanted to see, how do you see this in the market? Now, at that point, if the person is interested to sort of work through, they will already start asking you the questions, which will lead you somewhere. But if they are not at all interested, they'll also tell you sometimes, and sometimes they won't, right? Because it's hard to read people. Sometimes they are never direct, especially Indians have this habit of never being direct.
Yeah,
You don't know what they are saying versus what they are doing, right? So you got to make up your own mind to say, okay, what are they really saying? So in that case, once your meeting is over, it's okay to send, hey, thank you for your time, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, here is some information on what we do. Or here is what you asked and here is the question, right? Now I have established a rapport. I have done 2 or 3 touches with you, and I start tracking you on your social because you've connected with me, and I'm looking at what is it that you are talking about. And sometimes I will react to that. And at other times I will send you something. And then at some point I'll ask you saying, hey, by the way, you said you were interested in this. We have now released a new release, and or we have a new customer who has just signed up. Is there anyone else you think we should be talking to? And so slowly, slowly you roll them in. Don't try to do like immediately. Nobody likes to be sold, right? Everybody likes where you market to them that they come around to buying from you. You want them to come to you as opposed to you going to them with that proposition in some ways. And I know it seems hard, but it isn't when you go into the process.
Okay. So Paul, a follow-up question on this particular journey itself. So when do you think it's the time to stop?
So some people will tell you off immediately, right? And if they say that, you put them off, but you don't put them off forever. I'll give you an example. So we had a scoring system that we created, which said that if somebody, send me, was a targeted customer of mine, but prospects of mine, but they told me, right now, don't bother me. So we used to give them a very large negative score so that they never come up in our marketing messages. And interestingly, one of the salesperson went in and went to all the old opportunities that never converted, where the customer said, don't bother me, but he felt that the right customer is there. And guess what? He got 5% conversion from those old opportunities, which in a B2B business is very significant. So my point of telling you this is why I said, build your customer database from day one. Someone who is not ready to buy from you today may be ready a year from now. And also remember, people like to buy from somebody they believe is going to be in the business. So in the beginning, the same people who did not even want to talk to you will be very open to buying from you 2 years from now when you're successful. When you've sold the other 5 customers, now they're ready to buy from you. And there are certain customers who are never going to buy from a startup. So you have to figure that out early on and not waste your time with the companies that are never going to buy from a startup until you become a little bit bigger, right? So there are companies where you go in and they will make you go through this whole bit of process. And then their finance guy will send you a 20-page questionnaire. What's your revenue? What's your balance sheet? What's your income statement? Blah, 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 blah. There is no way they're going to buy from you. So you got to figure that out early in your cycle that, hey, is this a person, is this a company that is even likely to be my customer? So you always have a champion in your company who's pushing you. It's a good question to ask them, hey, what are the challenges of selling to you guys? Because you don't want to waste your time with somebody who's not ready to buy from you in the first 6 months. Right now, as a startup, I want my first 10 customers to be in my bag if I'm a B2B company. So I need to figure out who are they. They're going to buy from me if they have a pain very high. And I solve that. So I have a lot of other presentation that I could give you, but I don't think we have time for it. So I want to open up to more questions because I think that is probably a better use of your time. So ask me other questions about your business, about the problems and challenges you are facing. So go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing.
Paul, one thing which you added as an answer to my previous question was the value which the customer sees is based on what we make them perceive. So how should we make the customer perceive the value of our product? So there are tangible benefits which they can see right away. Yeah, if I use this product, my revenue is gonna go by 20% up. So that's my tangible benefit. But what about the intangible benefits? And let's say if it gives the company a really good goodwill, they could be a first move with that kind of technology. So how should we make them perceive that value?
Okay, excellent question. I have a slide on that, not in this deck, but so to me, there are sort of 3 or 4 kinds of startups, right? Leaving aside the social startups, there is what I call a cost saving startup. And the second is the insurance startup. And the third is the revenue startup. So when I talk about insurance startup, those are the ones which are like security companies or companies that exist in business because of the mandated problems, right? There are too many, like the government has said, there is GDPR, CCPA, so therefore those companies will exist. Or there are regulations that have to be met by the companies, or right now there is COVID, so anything related to COVID is an insurance startup, right, in some sense. So the insurance startups are always the first ones where they can penetrate the market the fastest. However, they don't grow very fast. Why? Because most of their products are bought for CYA. Everybody knows what CYA is. I don't want to spell it. But if you don't know, you can Google it. So the buyer is buying you because they're afraid if they don't buy you, something else might go wrong. So therefore, they'll buy one of everything. However, they only use 1 or 2 products in the end that grow. And that is why those companies don't grow very much. This is why there are too many cybersecurity startups, but not all of them grow. Many of them are able to penetrate early customers, but then their growth stalls. Only few break out of the pack. The second type of startups are what I call cost-saving startups, where they save cost for their customers. Now, many times we as startup people think it is very important. I save you 50% cost. So therefore, you should buy my product. Now, I am the head of IT. You came to me to buy your product. My budget is $1 million a year. Your product is replacing something I spent $10,000 on, and you save me 50%. You save me $5,000 a year. Do I give a hoot about it? No. It may be the most important decision for you, but for me as the buyer, it matters nothing, right? However, if you were at $250,000 products in my $1 million budget and you save me 10%, I might even be interested just for that reason. So think of your buyer. Put yourself in the buyer's shoes, not in your own shoes. That's the lens you got to change. The companies that only do their selling on a cost savings never are able to be very prosperous. Why? Because they are always fighting that battle of cost saving, right? And they have to continue to sell that value on an ongoing basis. So as a result, they need a lot of sales push. So their sales and marketing costs are always higher. If I have my choice, I want to have a startup, which is a revenue enhancing startup. Every company wants new revenue, no matter how big, no matter how small. If I tell you I am selling you a product that helps you increase your revenue, you are going to not ask me how much does it cost. You are going to say, how much revenue can you increase for me? And then I'm going to compare to say, okay, I'm willing to give you 10% of that revenue. No big deal. I don't even think twice about it, right? Facebook was one such product initially. Now, by revenue, it's not always dollars and cents, right? Why did you go on Facebook as a user? Because it gave you an opportunity to share things in the open, beyond your local neighborhood to the rest of the world. So they were selling you an emotional value, if you might, which didn't exist before, right? So their revenue, obviously, in their case, the revenue for me as a user, I continue to add more and more usage of the product. But in a B2B sense, if you can figure out how you can increase the revenue for your customers, the whole pitch is about how do I increase your revenue, it will become a much easier sale than if you continue to focus on, I save you 20% of the cost. Does that help answer your question? I know it's a long-winded answer, but I want you guys to get that concept.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Any other questions? Did I bore everyone that you don't have any more questions? Or did I answer everything?
I have one question.
Sure.
What is the difference between sales and marketing?
This is an age-old question of what is the difference between sales and marketing, and everybody has a different answer because nowadays the businesses, sales and marketing are kind of, they work hand in hand in more ways than it was possible before. But generally what I say the difference is sales is concerned with what I can sell within my sales cycle. So if my sales cycle is a quarter, then my sales is what I can do in this quarter, while my marketing better worry about what I will sell the next quarter. So marketing's job is to worry about what the salesperson can sell the next quarter, while the salesperson's job is to figure out what I can sell this quarter. Does that help?
Yes, yes. And for an automotive company, can you share some more light on that for a company like any OEM?
So if your business is doing an OEM deal, it is a longer sales cycle, number one, right? And I have a whole presentation deck that I will share with you guys later on, is about how to sell to B2B businesses, how to do your first 10 customers in a B2B sense. And a lot of it was for enterprise, but many of the OEM have a similar angle as B2B, which means I need to figure out who is my buyer, who is my influencer, how many people are in my buying cycle, and how do I influence every one of them, right? And then for an OEM deal, most of the time, it is probably going to be sold by a combination of you, the entrepreneur, and maybe if you have a salesperson, that is enough because you don't need to spend a lot of money in marketing. You have to only do internal marketing, i.e. marketing within the account to make sure that everybody understands who you are and is supportive of you, right? So I would actually, in that business, I would make sure that you have a champion who loves you, who is willing to go back for you, who has a backbone. Having a champion who does not have a backbone is also equally bad, right? So you need a champion who's willing to stand up and go to his management and bat for you. Okay.
Champion in my customer. So if my customer is some organization, there is someone in his org chart who is going to vouch for me in front of his management to get it done.
Yes. If you don't have a champion in an enterprise deal or a large size deal, whether it is OEM or whatever, you are going to fail. So there is a process called MEDPICC. You can Google it, MEDPICC. And so that is the sales process, for example, we follow for enterprise. And so when I go look at an account plan of a salesperson, I want to know, have they identified who is my champion? Who is my economic buyer? Who is my technical buyer? And where is the budget going to come from? Who do they report to? And who is the budget signing authority? And then is it going to go to the CFO after that? Do they have a long process following that as well? Because sometimes you can be caught in a large company's procurement cycle for 6 months. So you need to understand every aspect of that before I declare victory. So when we do an account plan with a salesperson and the salesperson says, I'm going to close this deal next quarter, and they haven't identified a champion, they don't know whose budget it is coming from, I know this deal is not happening.
Correct.
Okay.
Understood.
Yes, any others?
So Paul, so basically my name is Harmagya. I'm from Frings. So I have a question on how do you define your sales cycle and how can I make my sales cycle as short as possible?
It's a good question. So let me first address what is the sales cycle. Sales cycle is equal to the time you make the first contact with a prospect to the time the PO comes in your hand. The purchase order comes in your hand. And it's the average. Some customers will take 18 to 24 months. Some might take 8 to 10 days. So you are looking at sort of what is the average when a customer finds out about you and then buys from you, right? So now how do I reduce my sales cycle depends on you understanding where does your sales cycle slow down, right? So you need to, so what we do is we plot a journey for a customer in your mind to say, my customer prospect comes to me, they do an evaluation. Let's say it's a software, enterprise software product. And if a large size enterprise product sale, they're going to do what we call a POC, proof of concept, which means they want to see how is it going to perform in my network. So if your product goes into their environment and you don't have a proper POC process, you might be stuck there for like 6 months, as an example. The other thing that I want you to all know in the startup business, we always get stuck with what I call tire kickers. In every large company, there are many tire kickers whose job it is, and we also call them lab rats. They're never going to buy shit from you, but they will make you go through the ringer of testing and making you feel good that your product is being evaluated by a company X. But you never ask the question, do they have a buying power? Do they have a budget? Are they ever going to buy? Who do they report to? And what do they do for you? So unless you ask those questions, you will find that you are spending inordinate amount with these lab rats that make you feel really good that they're going to end up buying something from you, but they have no buying power. Sometimes they are actually good evaluators who can get you to the right people. But these are things you have to know. You have to ask, you have to find out. Don't take it for granted that just because you are doing a POC with somebody, they're going to buy from you. In fact, every time you do a proof of purchase with a proof of concept with a customer, make sure you make them sign a contract which says, if I do A, B, C, and D, you're going to buy it. Or this is what is going to happen after that. It is a clear understanding between you and them that has to exist. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in this cycle forever and you will never be able to do a sale.
So, Paul, it's Dharmagya again on a follow-up question. So, if I talk about like big clients, if I talk about big clients, so do you think that asking them for a signed document for a POC that I do this is this, then they would buy my product, will take a longer time?
It can, but this is where I test whether this person has a buying power or not.
Okay. So
so hold on. If this person cannot go and get his boss to also sign on something, that means this person has no power or is not willing to bat for you. So do I really want to waste time with them? Is what you got to make a decision.
Okay. And and if I'm directly talking to the boss and I'm asking for him like a signed deal on a POC, then what?
Then what?
So what I'm saying is that if I'm directly talking to the senior level executive of a company and we are going ahead with the POC and I'm telling them that before the POC you will have to sign this document.
Okay, so sometimes they may not sign a document for you, but for every POC, I want an entry criteria and an exit criteria. Meaning, here are the 5 things you're going to evaluate my product against. And when I have done those, I am done. And oh, by the way, the POC is going to last for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And if I do this POC, I want you to dedicate somebody to do this test. Right? So now you have set a process in their mind. They may not sign a PO. They will say, okay, I'll see what it does for me. But now you force them to say, what is the problem you're going to help solve for them? And then if you have shown them that you've solved that problem, you can at least have a way to go back saying, look, I solved this problem. Now tell me what. Are you ready to buy now?
Yeah. So Paul, first I'll tell you.
As you grow bigger, you will force this. Right? When you're small, you can't force it. But as you grow bigger and bigger, you have more customers, you will force that process.
So Paul, I'll tell you where my question is coming from. So we at Frinks are currently in a talks with the huge brand at India, which owns the Domino's at India. And we are in the talks with the senior level executive to get a POC of our product with them. So Paul, I wanted to know, another question of mine is that should we from ourselves tell them that we want to do a POC with you and these will be the results? As because they'll be having an understanding of our product and they'll also evaluate our product to their own metrics.
So generally what we do is we come up with a POC and the POC document is agreed to between the customer and us. Right? And so it is really, it is really important for you to agree on a POC with them, which has a criteria of here are the things that we do and here are the things you're going to test. Because if you don't have that understanding, and if I'm a lab rat, I'm going to go off tangent and I'm going to test 10 million other things that your product, you probably something mentioned casually, but you don't want it to be tested. Right? So it is your job to set that boundary. If you don't set the boundary, customer has a lot of time. You don't. You need to get the deal done, man. This guy has a full-time job. His job is to continue to do the testing until cows come home. So unless he has a hurry, unless there is a driver in his business, you got to set a driver. If he has a great driver, like, by a certain date, if he doesn't do it, he is going to be out of some regulation or some software that he has to upgrade. Otherwise, he has to pay $1 million penalty. Then it is fine. But if you don't know any of those drivers, you need to make the driver happen.
Exactly, I got your point. So, Paul, excuse me, this is my last question. So, Paul, so getting on to my last question. So, taking in a case that I'm in touch with the many senior level executives of a company, and like I'll have to follow up, or I'll have to send an emotional mail or something, some sort of that to give them a touch. So, whom should I do that? Should I do that to my champion, who I have seen, who am I looking at the champion in that organization, or to the or to the all of the senior level executive I am in contact with?
So I think it's a question that I can't answer for you without knowing the characteristics of the account or of the people around, right? So this is sort of your people decision that you have to make as a salesperson to understand, because you're doing a very fine dance, right? You want to make sure you don't piss off anybody, but at the same time you want to make sure that they understand you're not a pushover. Right? Because they think you are a startup out of a garage, therefore you are a pushover. That's what the companies want. So you want to make sure that at some point it is clear that you are giving them something of value, and it is a mutual win-win. It's not a win-lose. It's a win-win for them, and it's a win-win for you. And therefore, both of us have to work together as a team to make it work. And so then you figure out who is it that you're going to give this message to.
Hey, Paul,
anyone else?
Paul, if you could take just one or two questions and then wrap up. I need the last.
I can take more questions. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to wrap up by 12:15 and then use some time for a couple of odds and ends, and then we can continue Q&A even after for those that want. So yeah, please go ahead for another 5-6 minutes. Yeah. Go ahead. Somebody was ready.
Okay. So I was just curious, thinking back to the first startup that you were a part of, what is some advice that you know now that you would have given to yourself back then, if you
Oh gosh, how much time do we have?
just 5 minutes, you know.
I think, when I did my first startup, the markets were very different, right? So that advice probably won't be valuable today because the times have changed. Because when I did my first startup, the internet didn't really exist in the current form, because we were sort of the pioneers of trying to do companies in the internet 0.9 era, when it was not even 1.0. And today we are in 3.0. So I don't think those things are valid. But I think that the advice based on, what I will give my younger self is as follows. So I think for a startup to succeed, there is a 3-part passion and 2-part execution and 1-part practicality. So if you don't have all 3 of them in the right mixture, it is very hard to succeed. Because if you have only passion, but you don't have anything behind it, which is what I call execution, you can only go so far. And then at some point, you have to have that practical aspect of saying, this is not working. This isn't going to go. Because your passion is telling you, you should continue, right? But your execution is not working. And then there is a third aspect, which is always telling you, evaluate. Something is wrong. Pivot if that is not working, right? So all 3 have to sort of come together. And one thing that an entrepreneur fails to do most of the time is listen. We all love our voice. I am no different than any of you, right? We all love our voice. In our talking, we forget to listen. An entrepreneur's job is to listen, to not talk. The more you talk, the less opportunity you have to listen. So one test I tell everybody to do is, if in a meeting with your customer, the 70% of the time was not spent by the customer talking, reevaluate your meeting. It was a wrong meeting. Sometimes you're just giving them your product overview and all that. That's fine, right? Sometimes it's a one-way conversation. But I'm saying if you're having a meeting with somebody, and this is a rule for every meeting, as an executive, as an entrepreneur, you should make it sure. If you do not learn, if you do not listen more than 50% of the time, you didn't learn anything. Okay? Did that answer your question, Victoria?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? We have time for one more question. Nope. Anyone else?
How mature your product should be while you are getting into the market? Should you wait to make all the improvements and then go and sell your product, or should you go with whatever you have which is functional and then keep on improving with the customer? It's a vague question, but open-ended question, but some clarity will be helpful.
Very good question, actually. There are two schools of thought on it, right? One school of thought is the Eric Ries thought of, you keep on building your MVP and keep going, and someday you get your product built by your customer, right? Not all of us have that luxury to some extent, right? Sometimes if you find those champions early on when you do your customer discovery, you get those champions who are willing to go with you as you develop your product. If you are that lucky, amazing, right? In which case, you figure out, here are the 5 customers I'm going to work with, and I'm not going to have a complete product for them. It is going to be built on a daily basis, and they're going to work with me and get me to that stage, right? Those are very lucky situations, and I would love to have that situation, right? The second situation is where I am going with an MVP, right? But I want to make sure that my MVP, so every customer has a different tolerance level, right? So if I am going ahead and selling a product to a very large company from day one, and my product isn't ready, you're not going to succeed. You're wasting your time. But if you went to somebody, a mid-level, a small, medium-sized company, where they're willing to work with you because they're going to get a much better deal working with you, and you are solving that one problem that they really had, right? So I have this thing called pain test, right? So by that pain test, I mean is this. So let's say if you ever go to an emergency with a doctor, what's the first thing they ask you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how high is your pain? And if your pain is at level of 8 or so, then only they really entertain you as an emergency patient. So your challenge is to figure out a customer who has a pain of 8. If that customer has a pain of 8, they're willing to live with you for the other issues not being there. So the challenge is to find that customer who has that pain of 8. If you can't find that customer with a pain of 8, and every one of your customers has a pain of 5, they're not going to live with all the stuff that is missing. So that just means you didn't get the right customer for your early product. So find that customer who has a pain of 8, that they're willing to take your product, which is not perfect, but it's a little bit beyond an MVP, i.e. it does solve that problem that they have. Then they're willing to work with you.
Understood.
Okay.
One last question from my side. You started with a very good slide of the customer user, give some one example which helps it out more, because it is what the go-to-market strategy is all about.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I've uploaded all the slides. I'll show people how to find the entire slides, including the ones you were not able to cover today, Paul. Last
All
words
right.
from you. Yeah, but please stay on. We may see if there's some few questions. I just want to do some closeout items, and then we'll have some optional Q&A if you have time.
So if you
All
guys
good?
want, if you have optional Q&As, I will stay for 10, 15 minutes more. So let me know if you guys have more questions. I will stay. Otherwise, I will say bye right now.
So, Paul, just last message to you. Like you were saying that you will be sharing your B2B pitch deck. So I was just saying that please don't forget to share that because it might help a lot.
Actually, it's a TiE video that I did a course on it that I would, I think the link was broken last time I checked. So that's why I didn't give you the link right now. But if you search as R. Paul Singh TiEcon, I think I did a couple of videos for TiE in the past about how to get your first 10 B2B customers and few others like that. So you can search also if you don't find it, and I will look for it and give it to you. So does anybody have any questions that I should stay back, or should I say bye now?
You can even drop a note in chat that says, I do have some, and then I'll do a few minutes and turn it back. If not, going once, going twice. Hey, Paul, if people need to ask an offline question, should they come through me? Do you want them to go? They've all got your email address. Because
come straight, no problem.
They had to send their company description.
Sorry, I think you cut out for a minute. So what I would say is, if you have any questions, you can always connect to me on LinkedIn. But when you connect to me on LinkedIn, please give me a little context that you were in this class, so at least I know. And also, if you have any specific questions, you want to reach out to me on email, feel free to do that.
Good.
But please set a context, because I get some emails and I may not know what this is about. So I may not be able to really give you a right answer. And I'll see if I can find that link, and I'll put it in the chat window before I leave.
And Paul, since this is workshop number 1 for TiE University, we can say this was the best workshop. So.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much. I know in some of the chat items I've been watching, people have learned at least one item or two, because that's what we said, try to find a way to improve and use this to continue to look at ways to launch and scale your company better. So you gave them a lot of ideas. I hope they take at least a couple and go implement them. So thanks so much.
Yeah, if I gave you one idea, I feel like I did my job, so it's fine.
Awesome. Just a couple of things then to get people ready. I hope you're able to see my slides. You know that we have 3 more Saturdays coming up. And it's okay if some members of the team, but at least always we need 1 or 2 members of the team to participate. For next week, we've got one on financials. And that's an important part, because I've started to see some items from you folks, and I'll tell you, just like you learned a lot today from Paul, I think you'll learn a great deal from the couple. Actually, we have 2 instructors. One's a VC and one's a professor of quantitative finance next Saturday. But I do believe that in that regard, you have, I'm going to ask a poll. And Amin, if you're still on, could you kick off poll number 3, or you want me to?
Yep, I'm doing it.
Maybe. Okay, poll number 3. Hopefully you know what this means. It's due by tomorrow night. It's just to upload information. And so if you folks will just take 10 seconds to answer one of these questions, it's the homework due. You do not need to create new work. It basically asks you for your current pitch deck, hopefully the one you won your competition, or any updates you made. And number 2 is also include a second file of your Excel financial modeling, et cetera, because the professors or the instructors, and make sure they customize their work for you. It's typically an area that people plenty of advance notice. So hopefully so far nobody.
Hey Paul. Hey Paul. I maybe recommend closing your video, because you're coming
one,
across.
because You all should know it's due by tomorrow. I'm sorry, what do you mean by closing my video?
If you turn off, sorry, if you turn off your video, maybe we can get your audio a little bit more clear. You're coming in and out a little bit.
Okay. Let me make sure I'm on the best Wi-Fi network here. And I will go do that. And I think one last chance in 5 more seconds, we're going to show you the results.
Yeah, just about half of you guys have participated so far. So if we can just get the rest to respond, that would be great. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Appreciate everyone's response.
Good. Mean is we'll get the files uploaded by tomorrow. If you will do it today. I will say that please read all the questions. They're very clear. They just say upload a file and tell us what. And please include your second file that's got your financial models, because the instructors are going to take a look at that. I would say LSK team from Toronto, I'll need to catch up with you offline. What you responded with didn't match. I could not find the info. So that's item 2. Back again, we're going to do a poll on today's workshop. So if you'll kick that one off as well. I know all of you said you were more than ready. 4.5 was the average. Hopefully you learned 1 or 2 things today. That Mr. Singh gave you things to think about, that irrespective of the competition, that you really can go implement. I know I saw a couple of chat items that I'd say work with your mentors, work with your local chapter resources. Most of your chapters have great resources that can help you with sales and marketing. Because if you'd asked me what's the #1 item an entrepreneur or startup should consist of, anybody know the answer? Actually, the top 3 things an entrepreneur ought to consider, really focused on. Top 3 things by easily. And I now am a VC with 40 invested companies. What do you think that answer is? Anybody want to raise your hand or speak up? Okay.
Pop it into the chat.
What do you think that answer is? Top 3 things a startup entrepreneur should be focused on. And by the way, go ahead and show the results of this one, Amin.
Yep, it's being shared.
Okay. What's in the chat? Any answers, or anybody know the answer to the top 3 things in Lopez's view?
Option 1 will be the networking in the ecosystem or community.
Okay. It makes it's the top item. It doesn't make my top 3 because it's a process.
Are you able to sell your product or not?
Okay, yeah, I think you're on the right track. So I'll give you the answer that I tell all we meet with companies all the time. I'm a VC in the early stage tech companies, and I tell them the top 3 things to focus on are revenue, profitable revenue. If you go figure that out, you'll figure out all the answers are. Anytime I've started a business, if we start turning people into customers with POs, with buying product as early as possible, it's the likelihood that business will succeed. So just something to consider as we looked at this. Okay, I think we did those 2 results. The good news is easily looks like high scores, mostly 5s, a couple of 3s. So thanks for that. The one other thing is, I believe by now most of you have been given mentors. At this point, I've had a couple of you ask, what's the mentor to do? So I wrote up a 2-page document. All these documents, including the slides that Mr. Singh showed today and the ones he couldn't get to, are in this shared folder. So if you want to take a picture of that, here's what it's called. Pretty simple. I'll let you take a picture of that. Just, by the way, I'll just show you where all these slides are. So we're gradually putting all these things. So workshop #1, when he sends me the info on the video, B2B, I'll put it in here, but his slides are already in this folder, okay? Going back here, There is a two-pager on mentoring student teams, the responsibilities on both sides. This information package is a short document. So again, just ask that you consider reading these kinds of things. It'll make you feel even more prepared and get the most out of our program that we have over the next couple of months. Okay, back to a couple of final things. Here's our contact information in case you need it. The slides that I'm showing you today have been popped up before if you've been attending. And with that, I think we're at, I'm going to tell you that I went to Catholic school, Catholic college, so we always start on time and end on time. So next time, hope you'll join about 10 minutes early with your cup of coffee or whatever. And I promise we will end on time. So at this point, I'm just going to leave this up and end the formal part of our program and ask if there are any questions. Please stay on. On the other hand, if any of you want to stay on in a breakout room, or going to enable that, put it in chat or raise your hands, because we can let your team and or mentors, if they wish to come, it's optional for them. They can all do that, but you need to tell us that in the chat room. We've covered a lot of things, and hopefully you feel you're off to a great start. I'm just delighted that you all at least are representing your local chapters. And with that said, we're coming in for an on-time landing, and have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks so much. We're ending the formal part of the program today, and I'll stay on with Amin and work with any of you for the next number of minutes that you wish. Thanks all. Put any final questions in chat, and see you again next Saturday. Bye. Okay, I'm going to stay on and take any